There has been an incredible amount of misinformation, lack of information coming out about the suspect who killed Charlie Kirk. The reports are that the killer, or a suspected killer, is not cooperating with authorities. And then a whole mess of other stuff that has come out, largely based upon half statements by the Utah governor, and then reporting that is from sources that are around the investigation. You have Kash Patel retweeting reporters reporting that is not directly attributed only to sources around the FBI. Normally what happens is if the FBI wants to put something out, they'll put a statement on it. So when Kash Patel is retweeting reports that supposedly are going on with the FBI, you have to wonder, why is it that he wants to maintain that arm's length and create this narrative? This clip, and I am in no way praising Bill Maher on this, but this clip, I think, captures the dynamic that has gone on over the course of the weekend. This is Ben Shapiro on tour, I guess, in the wake of Charlie Kirk being assassinated.
He's also got a book out.
Oh, he's got a book out too. Here he is on Bill Maher's show.
If there's a shooting at a synagogue, it is very likely to be either a white supremacist or a radical Muslim. If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not true. We don't know what this kid is.
We do know this kid was of the left. We do know that.
We do know what?
That this kid was of the political left. That is according to contemporaneous reporting from The Guardian as well as Tablet Magazine today.
It's 2 days out. We don't know shit, Ben. But we don't know shit. They never do. The internet is undefeated in getting it wrong to begin with.
It's not about the internet. That's about the actual reporting by mainstream accepted. The Guardian is not a right-wing.
Here's what we heard. Here's what I was told so far, and I'll tell you what was wrong. First, I heard he's a registered Republican. Not true. Okay. Then he was a donor to Trump. Not true. His father works in the sheriff's office. Not true. There was a picture of him wearing a pro-Trump shirt. Not true. Member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Not true. We don't know what he is.
Well,
how are you so sure he's of the left? Now, I agree when you write on a bullet, what did he write on the bullet?
Catch this fascist, which is also a gamer thing.
Okay, but now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough.
You mean the Groypers, yes. I mean, so that would...
you're sure he's not that?
I'm not sure that he's not that.
A minute ago you were sure what he was.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Okay, because I've been...
You were.
I mean, yeah. We don't know about this guy. And even the information that we're getting, put aside the reporting, because the reporting has to be coming from somewhere. And there has been no one who has said, in any of the reporting that I've seen, where there's a quote from anybody who said he's of the left. This is what we get from the guy. First of all, I can't even how incredibly, the idea of hypocrisy is, who cares? But this guy, what's his name? Cox? Spencer Cox, who's out there talking like we must come together. And then, dog whistles, there's no rioting, there's no, basically just presenting the right-wing talking points and how we need to come together and calm things down. And then he goes on this tour this weekend and giving half information. I mean, aside from the fact that God knows what he's going to do to any attempts to convict this guy, but all of this sort of it's half conjecture. Yeah, I mean, watch this with the notion that what Spencer Cox is out there going is we know 2 plus maybe 2 equals. I'm not going to say what it equals. People are going to have to decide for themselves. That's what he's doing here. And it's that second two in that equation that is like vague enough. And then again, you got Kash Patel out there retweeting reporting that supposedly is attributing things to the FBI, but he has the ability to put out a statement from the FBI. Good.
Understood. I just want to go back to my first question about what you told the Wall Street Journal about that this is a person indoctrinated with leftist ideology. And the reason why I think it would be great to be more specific is because your goal of trying to lower the temperature, you said that this is based on investigation and interviews with people who knew him. Did they just use the term leftist ideology, or did they give specifics?
Yeah, there are conversations that were discussed specifically about Charlie Kirk. Other conversations about the direction that this was going.
Listen, he is not addressing the question here. He is not addressing the question. And the bottom line is, if you're going to put out statements that this guy has leftist ideology, you should be able to, which you shouldn't be doing at this point until you have really like it all sewn up. You should be able to answer her question with, yes, we have had specifics where people we have interviewed who are very close to him have said, quote, he had a leftist ideology. But instead, he's dancing around all this stuff. Like, the level of irresponsibility of this guy is off the charts. Go back a little bit and just let people listen to the way he responds to this question. It is insane.
Sure. You said that this is based on investigation and interviews with people who knew him. Did they just use the term leftist ideology, or did they give specifics?
Yeah, there are conversations that were discussed specifically about Charlie Kirk. Other conversations about the direction that this was going. And look, my job is just to tell people I really don't have a dog in this fight. If this was MAGA and a radicalized MAGA person, I would be saying that as well. If the Friends were saying that, I would be sharing that as well. That's not what they're sharing. And so I do think it is important, again, to understand how someone gets radicalized like this. And in this case, it happened. As much as people wish it wasn't or don't want it to be this, these are the facts that are being presented to us. If there are additional facts that would point otherwise, but family discussions, parents, this is what they're saying. And these things happen. Yeah. And so it's okay to have these discussions.
Listen, absolutely. And I'm just trying to get more facts. More details of the facts that you're putting out. One last question on that. No,
she's not trying to get more facts. She's trying to get a fact. Conversations about discussions does not in any way even come remotely close to answering what she's saying. So if this guy's able to go out and say he had a left-wing ideology, why can't he state a single fact?
Yes. Someone will testify.
That would be a piece of evidence of that. Not a shred of it. This is just, and the idea that we don't have major mass media editorials or whatnot saying that this guy is acting about as recklessly as you possibly could at this point. In this veneer of trying to be like, I would say it if it was my, you're not saying anything. Except for you're making some broad assessment, and you can't even say what one single building block about that is. If it is the case, and we don't know if it is the case, that this guy was in a romantic relationship with another man, or was in a romantic relationship with a transgender woman, if that's the case, that still doesn't mean that this person had left wing. I can tell you right now that there are groypers who are either out and gay or secretly gay. I know this. Yeah. that is the case. So the idea that, and we don't even know about whether any of that is true. There's a picture of a roommate wearing a onesie.
And some hearsay relayed by law enforcement.
And this guy goes on and makes assessments in the press. And then when he's questioned as to like, what is one element that is the basis of that assessment? And nothing. Play it out.
And so it's okay to have these discussions.
Listen, absolutely. And I'm just trying to get more facts, more details of the facts that you're putting out there. One last question on that. You just said right now, which is something that you mentioned on Friday, is that he had discussions with family members about Charlie Kirk. Do you have specifics on what he was saying about Charlie Kirk to his family?
Just not a fan. That's all I can say.
Okay, not a specific reason why.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, I don't know why he's laughing, but he's not a fan of Charlie Kirk. You know what? I would have guessed that based upon the bullet that he put into Charlie Kirk. The question isn't whether he was a fan of Charlie Kirk. You're out there saying that he has some leftist ideology. In what way wasn't he a fan of Charlie Kirk? Because you can go back to 2017. Back at the time when Charlie Kirk was okay being on stage with a gay man and in front of TPUSA, and watch the Groypers go up and at a mic and go after Charlie Kirk because of this. And they are not fans of Charlie Kirk. You don't have to go back more than a couple of weeks to see Nick Fuentes making it clear that he was not a fan of Charlie Kirk.
You shouldn't let him call himself a Christian.
I was not a fan of Charlie Kirk's, but I'm not going to commit any type of violent acts. That doesn't tell us anything about the shooter. I don't think there was anybody in the country who thought, maybe this was just a really intense fan of Charlie Kirk's. So the governor's going out there making assessments, and when he's questioned on even providing one iota of substance to support those assessments, all he does is say the most obvious thing in the world, that the killer of Charlie Kirk was not a fan of Charlie Kirk's, and just leaves it out there to imply that he was not a fan of Charlie Kirk's because he was a leftist. I don't have any different expectations of people on the right, but the idea that the normie media doesn't seem to be able to point out, like, hey, this is nuts what he's doing here. Nuts.
It was really awesome to see at the Emmys this show of solidarity for people in Palestine. Gaza City is being obliterated as we speak. I saw an Israeli historian who was in central Israel at the time and is critical, obviously, of the genocide, pointing out that you could hear the bombing of Gaza City from central Israel last night. They are trying to annex the entire north, and it's not like there's anything left of Gaza City besides human beings. All of the buildings.
A million people among rubble.
Yeah. And the hundreds of thousands of bodies and the evidence of their killings under that rubble is being destroyed. I just want to be clear on that, because we now know it's hundreds of thousands are dead. And Israel is trying to destroy the evidence. They're clearing out the north with bulldozers, some of the kind of militarized bulldozers that Israel is infamous for, including in the running over of the American activist Rachel Corrie over 20 years ago at this point. But we're not just having like milquetoast phrases about ceasefire anymore, and we got to give credit to those people because they were standing up when it was really hard to at the onset of the genocide. But we're having like...
Although a lot of liberal Zionists clutched onto that saying, oh, we can do a temporary ceasefire, which is what people like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden even like slightly supported.
And by the way, that's what liberal Israelis want too, right? When you see these protests, and it's an increase in some small minority of Israelis saying it's a genocide, talking about Palestinian children. There is a small movement there, but when you see these protests in Tel Aviv and you ask the standard liberal Israeli, they want a ceasefire to get the hostages back and then continue the military operation. That's the scope of liberalism within the settler colonial state of Israel. But Hannah Einbinder, anti-Zionist Jew, deserved winner of this of the Emmy here, because I just got to say, Hacks is the best show on TV right now, and she's incredible in it.
Very funny show on HBO.
Yeah, and moving. Like, I cry and laugh a lot, and you don't, and makes me love being a woman. It makes me want to call my mom, and I swear to God, it's like uplifting for me. Brian's laughing at me, being too earnest. Here we go. This was Hannah's acceptance speech.
Finally, I'll pay the difference. Sorry. Finally, I just want to say, finally, go Birds.
No.
And free Palestine. Thank you.
The blank spot in the audio there was fuck ice.
Yeah,
I'm
fuck
not sure
ice.
why that.
Go back.
If Emma had her choice, it would have censored Go Birds.
Yeah, they blanked at the wrong spot there. What she meant to say was Saquon Barkley is a traitor to New York City. Here we go.
Go Birds. And free Palestine. Thank you.
They didn't blur that one out. I mean, that would have been... It would have made it worse if they bleeped that out.
Palestine as a dirty word.
Yes. And did Gene Smart win too? I hope so. Yeah. Anyway,
Wasn't paying attention to the awards actually.
there was also a point where Hannah, like, there was a shot of her and they didn't have her pin. You have that? But we can just describe it. She turned to make sure the camera caught it. And then this was some of her explanation after as to why it was important for her to say, fuck ICE, free Palestine, in this moment in her career.
Hannah, I wanted to ask you, when you were up on stage, you talked about Palestine, and I know you signed a pledge too. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah. So, well, I thought it was important to talk about Palestine because it's an issue that's very dear to my heart. I have friends in Gaza who are working as frontline workers, as doctors right now in the north of Gaza to provide care for pregnant women and for school children to create schools in the refugee camps. And it's an issue that's really close to my heart. For many reasons, I feel like it is my obligation as a Jewish person to distinguish Jews from the state of Israel because our religion and our culture is such an important and long-standing, basically like institution that is really separate to this sort of ethno-nationalist state. And in terms of the pledge, it's like many movements, boycotting is an effective tool to create pressure on the powers that be to meet the moment, you know? So the Film Workers for Palestine boycott does not boycott individuals. It only boycotts institutions that are directly complicit in the genocide. So yeah, it's important to me and I think it's an important measure, and so I was happy to be a part of it.
Amazing. And she wasn't the only one. Javier Bardem, who has been outspoken on Palestine liberation for years, and I think it hurt his career, especially to say it when talking about the bombings of Gaza, maybe 2021, I feel like 2019, 2018, something like that. One of our great living actors, No Country for Old Men, one of the more perfect films of the 21st century, I will also say that. So these are good artists and good people. This is him speaking on the red carpet about what he wanted to focus on.
Here I am today denouncing the genocide in Gaza. I'm talking about the IAGS, which is the International Association of Genocide Scholars, who study thoroughly genocide and has declared it is a genocide. And that's why we ask for a commercial and diplomatic blockade and also sanctions on Israel to stop the genocide, free Palestine.
Sanctions is what we need to call for, and I just want to credit some of the other folks who signed this letter, basically boycotting Israeli film institutions. Yorgos Lanthimos, the director, great director of many Emma Stone vehicles, she also signed the letter. Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, Peter Skarsgård, Lily Gladstone are some of the actors. Ayo Edebiri, Javier Bardem, Mark Ruffalo, Cynthia Nixon, Josh O'Connor, Ilana Glazer, Rebecca Hall. I mean, the list goes on and on. These are thousands of people. Bowen Yang, Guy Pearce, Elliot Page, Harris Dickinson. These are big names right now in Hollywood, standing up and standing together, because it's a lot easier when you join together with other actors, where some of the stuff that we saw in the first year, it makes it harder for Hollywood executives to blackball actors like we were seeing initially. I mean, Rachel Zegler, I feel like, was on the cusp, but there were smaller actors who were completely, fired and their careers irrevocably harmed, especially early on in the genocide, when it was a lot harder to say these kinds of things, when it mattered too. And these folks that signed this also, Olivia Colman, I think, is mentioned. It's not like they're not taking a risk, but the fact that they're doing it together, and the fact that there are big names on there like Ruffalo, like Javier Bardem, like Emma Stone too, makes it that much more of a powerful statement, I would say.
I want to welcome to the program Megan Greenwell, journalist and author of Bad Company, Private Equity, and the Death of the American Dream. Megan, welcome to the program. I got to tell you, I've been waiting to start to see books about private equity, because it is such I think, a nefarious force in not just like our economy, but like it is degrading so much, it seems to me, in our society. You follow 4 people through their own various things in 4 different areas, media, retail, housing, and hospitals. Tell us about the 4 that you chose and why those 4 areas.
Yeah, so I chose the areas because they felt representative of the overall private equity trend in one way or another. So the book opens with retail, which is now sort of an outdated industry for private equity. They're not much interested in retail anymore. There are exceptions. Walgreens just got bought by private equity. But for the most part, they're trying to get out because retail isn't sexy anymore. But what you see is they were involved in retail earlier on, and then they got into hospitals, and they applied the exact same playbook from retail into hospitals. So it really didn't matter whether it was selling toys or delivering babies or saving people after a heart attack. All of that is just like a widget that can be, increase or decrease the production of to make more money. The ultimate goal for a private equity firm is solely to make money for itself. That does not require, in a lot of cases, making money for the portfolio company. It only requires making money for the partners. And so in some cases, you end up in a situation where the most valuable move for the private equity partners is actually to work against the interests of your own portfolio company. And so telling that story over these 4 industries felt really valuable.
Let's take a step back, talk about what private equity is, and particularly like distinguish it, because this notion of you can make money by buying a company or buying an enterprise, and your ability to make money is not just untethered from the health of that enterprise, but in fact may be in direct inverse proportion or relationship to the health of that company. So first, distinguish for us private equity from like venture capitalists. Those two things I think get confused, and they're different because they have different essentially interests or agendas.
Yes, I get tagged in stories online all the time of a venture capital disaster, and I'm like, okay, so different. So, I mean, the most obvious difference is that venture capital is taking a stake in a company. Private equity is generally acquiring companies wholesale. So that means whereas a venture capitalist might get a board seat, the private equity firm has full control over every company decision. And so that's like a really serious, important difference. And the way venture capital is set up, venture capital is out looking for unicorns, right? The only way for them to succeed is for enough of their companies to be really successful. They can stomach all sorts of disasters as well because they're playing a hits game, but what they're
like roulette. They're playing roulette, and they're hoping that one of those 10 bets comes in and lands.
Correct.
And it's going to pay for the rest of the bets, and it's going to pay and more.
Yes, but that bet landing requires that company being successful. In private equity, I'll take Toys R Us as an example because it's the first story in my book. The private equity firms in charge of Toys R Us took out $5 billion in loans to buy Toys R Us, and they were not legally responsible for paying those loans back. Only Toys R Us itself was. So the result was when, after several years of private equity ownership, Toys R Us went under, none of the employees got severance. They were promised severance in their contracts, but they weren't given severance because they were too low down on the creditors list during the bankruptcy.
Yep.
And KKR and Bain Capital, the 2 private equity firms in charge, both walked away from the life of that deal making a profit. So,
okay, I want to walk people through this because this is a leverage buyout. And this concept, I explain this leverage, but because Joanne Fabrics just went under in a very similar situation. And I had to explain to my kids who, various crafters, I had to explain what went on, and they just looked at me like, what?
Yeah.
Because they're like, literally, my 12-year-old son said, how is that legal? Yeah. And they take out a loan to buy the company, and then they make the company responsible for the loan. Mm-hmm. Then they extract all the value out of the company, whether that's real estate assets, or, the machinery or whatever. I mean, they don't always do this form, but this is broadly the formula.
Yeah.
They screw the company. They take their fees, they take their profits from whatever they're working on and whatnot. Meanwhile, the company is struggling to pay back this debt. Then it can't. Then it goes into bankruptcy. Yeah. Then they owe, the pension for the workers. They owe these creditors. The private equity guys are like, well, that's the corporation. It's not us.
Yes.
And they walk away with all the money. And
no,
they've
that's
basically extracted it. It's insane. That's insane.
Exactly right. So in the case of Toys R Us, it wasn't only that Toys R Us was buried under $5 billion of debt. The private equity firms in charge also sold off all of their real estate, as you mentioned. So Toys R Us historically had owned almost all of its own real estate, at least in the US. So now all of a sudden they're paying rent on the exact same land they until recently owned outright. The proceeds from those real estate transactions are obviously going to line the pocket of the private equity firms. And so it's just not that hard for a private equity firm to make money off of a company it owns while driving the company into the ground.
That's what they saw, right? They saw that real estate assets, and they said, like, this is a one-time payout. Yes. We can grab that. We can put that in our pockets, and the bankruptcy won't happen until we are basically safely have put that cash in our pockets.
Well, and it's not even just a one-time payout, because in a lot of cases, they strike sweetheart deals with the people they've sold the real estate to, such that they're taking a cut of the rent payments. So they're really
they sell the land to themselves for under market rate or whatever, a sweetheart deal. They pocket the proceeds of that with one hand. With the other hand, they take rent from their company.
Yeah, or even if they're not selling the real estate to themselves, they may be selling it to someone with whom they have a very you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of relationship. So in hospitals, for example, there's a company called Medical Properties Trust that's based in Alabama that I'm just fascinated by. They are not themselves a private equity firm, but they are the favored real estate partner of every private equity firm in hospitals. So of course, all of these big firms have cozy relationships with Medical Properties Trust, where they get bonuses for orchestrating the deal to MPT instead of to some other real estate investment trust. And so they get the proceeds from selling the land, but they also get, little transaction bonuses because Medical Property Trust is their pal.
It's just this dynamic, and people have to understand they're doing this with like almost every vet you go to now. And now we should say that's one model of the extraction, which is the full, we're just going to suck the entire lifeblood out of this. There's other models, and let's go through this. You mentioned Liz from Toys R Us, and the employees lost their pension. And she was someone who was so dedicated to Toys R Us that she had a tattoo of the logo. I mean, let's go to Roger Goes, who worked at the Wyoming Doctors Hospital. Was that or Wyoming?
Riverton Memorial Hospital.
Riverton Memorial in Wyoming. What is how do they apply? Because obviously, well, in some instances they might shut down a hospital or two, but in this one, it's a similar dynamic, but a slightly different sort of like, we're not going to fully extract all of the life force out of this. We're just going to make it much leaner.
Yes, exactly. So in private equity hospitals right now, what's going on is essentially a great roll-up. A private equity firm will buy dozens and dozens of hospitals and consolidate as much of their operations as possible. So when Apollo Global Management bought the hospital where Roger worked in Riverton, Wyoming, very small town Wyoming, they decided to consolidate it with another hospital they owned about 30 miles away. And originally everybody thought, okay, like consolidating means centralizing billing and IT, stuff that leaves more money for patient care. But what ended up happening was Riverton's hospital lost its ability to deliver babies. All of a sudden it had no OBGYN ward at all. And so you had to travel 30 miles through windswept canyon to the other private equity hospital in the town of Lander to even be able to deliver a baby. Even Lander only had one or two people capable of delivering babies on staff. So if they were busy or if you had any sort of complication, you were getting on a medevac flight to a bigger town. So the result was the number of medevac flights out of Fremont County, where both Riverton and Lander are, increased 900% after this private equity acquisition. It wasn't that the hospital didn't exist anymore. It was just that you couldn't get care in a real way there anymore.
Who paid for the medevac?
Well, interesting you should ask. Medevac companies are also a very popular target for private equity. And so
Of course, this is like I'm going to rent from myself. I mean, this is.
Yeah, exactly.
We're creating a new business for ourselves.
Right, exactly. So you see, you can't get service at your private equity owned hospital. The private equity has bought the medevac company and obviously increased the prices dramatically. And so now you get a bill for, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. This is also one of the poorest areas of Wyoming. And you can't afford to pay that bill. And the only reason you are being charged that bill in the first place is because they took all the services from your local hospital.
It's astonishing. Katie Tur interviewed a guy named Scott Brown. He is an Arkansas farmer talking about how the tariffs, and I'm sure you've seen clips of farmers out there who are talking about how they're looking at their crops and they're going I got to mulch it. There's no one to buy it. The tariffs have destroyed the soybean sales for farmers because China has basically said, yeah, we're just going to look elsewhere to buy it.
Well, we've got a real disaster with this tariff deal. I mean, we produce 40% more agricultural products in this country than we can consume domestically. 1 in every 4 rows of soybeans in every field in the entire United States of America has to go abroad. China is the largest importer of soybeans in the world. They import 61% of the world's market. Last year, we sent around $12 billion, I think $14 billion worth of soybeans the year before. For the first time in 20 years, China's bought 0 soybeans and 0 new crop corn out of this country.
0?
So we went from 12 billion to 0.
Where are they buying the soybeans?
Brazil. You see, we lost 42% of our market share in the first tariff war. In Trump's first tariff war, the Chinese went to buying their soybeans from Brazil. They invested billions of dollars in Brazilian infrastructure. They have moved into Africa, and they're going to commercially farm in Africa. Since we left with USAID, they moved their Belt and Road program into Africa. So we've pretty much lost the Chinese market share. If we got 100% of the soybean business, Katie, for every country in the world except for Brazil and Argentina, we would still only have half the soybean business that China.
Nope. You wonder why Lula is willing to say F you to Trump. This has been just this boon to them.
This timing of this whole, we're going to go it alone, America is the world power. Well, we're not that anymore. There's a big other one, and they can just partner with it. And, maybe that guy can just sell his farm to Trump's friend Bill Gates, who was just in the White House, because Trump's Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, people might want to look him up, is one of Bill Gates' closest friends and indeed is a billionaire because of a partnership with Bill Gates.
Well, you know who actually is a partner in a fund that is buying up foreclosed farms? J.D. Vance.
Oh, yeah, well, perfect.
Everybody's going to get rich.
Coincidence.
Except for not you. This is a story from Politico. So that's on the tariff end. Pop up, find that story. It is entitled, "The Whole Thing is Screwed Up. Farmers in Deep Red, Pennsylvania struggle to find workers." The whole thing is screwed up, said John Painter, a 3-time Trump voter who runs an organic dairy farm in Westfield. "We need people to do the jobs Americans are too spoiled to do." Is this 3-time Trump voter saying that Americans aren't capable of doing this? That there's a problem with the American character? The U.S. agricultural workforce fell by 155,000, about 7% between March and July. Well, don't worry, folks, because the Medicaid patients are on their way. Pew Research sent a data shows that total immigrant labor fell by 750,000 from January to July. Mission accomplished. People don't understand that if we don't get more labor, our cows don't get milked and our crops don't get picked, said Tim Wood, dairy farmer and member of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau of Directors. What are the chances that the tech billionaires and the other billionaires, to be fair, who run this administration sat around and went, we can defund colleges, we can kneecap universities, we can roll back, as they're deciding to do, discretionary funding for colleges with large minority student populations. We can literally turn back the clock in terms of educating our citizenry. Then we're going to have plenty of people who can work in the fields. Like, this notion of high-skilled profession, we can't compete anymore. So if we go back to some semi-agrarian lifestyle, farmers often turn to undocumented laborers because of the red tape and high costs associated with the H-2A program, which allows migrant workers to fill jobs in seasonal agricultural industries. They also complain that the H-2A, the nation's largest temporary visa program, is off limits to employers looking to hire year-round operations like dairy farms. Well, the real problem here is that they want to bring in workers who can't organize and protect their rights as workers. And they want to bring them in full time. But they also don't want to make it explicit that they're doing this because the people they voted for 3 times say that all these people are basically here to rape and kill us. I mean, the entire farming industry in this country, and for so long, the Republican Party was like, we got to protect our farmers.
No, that was mainly about income tax.
Exactly. The family farm, if we have the estate tax, what's going to happen to the family farm? It's just unreal. And, you know, the failure, I want to make it clear, this is all Republicans. But the failure of Democrats to seize this opening is stunning. I understand Chuck Schumer is busy trying to figure out the best way for him to cave on this budget deal. But nevertheless, like the idea that you now have the mainstream media, that you have Politico reporting on a dynamic where Trump voters are getting screwed by Trump in Pennsylvania. Politico. Like how far behind, how much of a sort of lagging indicator can the Democratic Party be? And I'm talking about the leadership of the Democratic Party. Let's be clear. How much of a lagging indicator can you be? Like, I get we lead from behind. But I mean, how far behind? If Politico is ahead of you in this, you know you've got a problem. Just shocking.
What kind of bull is this?
Yes.
And we are joined once again by friend of the show, Zachary Foster, historian of Palestine, PhD in Near Eastern Studies, and contributor to the Palestine Nexus newsletter, which everyone should subscribe to. Zach, thanks so much for coming on the show. Can we put up this map? This was from the UN Commission, officially said Israel has committed genocide. I find the past tense a little bit troubling, given the fact that it's ongoing. Also, the figures that they're using, we should say, the current population being 2.1 million. I still go back to Trump months ago saying 1.7 to 1.8 million are left. That would make sense given the fact that hundreds of thousands actually are dead. But this is the evacuation order here. And you can see for the podcast audience, basically the white is supposed to be the safe zone in the south. But scroll up slightly here, Matt. You can see the north of Gaza and Gaza City up there. You would have to pass through the purple zone, which is a kill zone, the militarized zone, that for that ethnic cleansing to happen. So even if they're the folks that are able to abide by the order to leave their home are very much at risk of just being bombed or shot because there's no way to move to the area they're asking them to move without being in the militarized kill zone.
An IDF source claimed that for about 48 hours, they would allow Palestinians access to a single access road that in which they would be able to move from the north to the south. At the same time that Israel has shut off internet in the north. We just received reports just a few hours ago that the Israeli army has shut off internet. Now, let me ask you this, Emma. How am I supposed to know which roads I'm allowed to travel on if I can't access the internet? I mean, it's a death march is what it is. Not just because you have 1 million people living in Gaza City, many of whom have, forgetting about having the funds to move. You have people, tens of thousands of people, sick, diseased, injured, elderly people, small children. How are all these people supposed to move in 48 hours? It's a death march, the same march that Armenians were sent on in World War I, the same march that millions of Jews were sent on in World War II, is exactly the same march that millions of Palestinians are now being sent on. It's a death march.
And what are you hearing about those Palestinian men that last week there were images of them being basically lined up and shuttled to God knows where? We still have very little information about what happened. Where did that occur, Zach? I'm sorry if I blanked on it.
Last week, the Israeli army rounded up something like 1,500 Palestinian men in the West Bank city, the occupied city of Tulkarm, which is in the West Bank, about an hour and a half west of Ramallah or Nablus. And it's an hour and a half, right, because of the 18 checkpoints you have to pass through. I mean, it's a 20-minute drive. But what we saw was thousands of Palestinian men. And a source in Tulkarm shared with me that the Israeli army just literally went door to door. They just walked into shops, they walked into restaurants, they walked into homes, grabbing every Palestinian man that they could find. And what does that remind you of, Emma? I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the scenes after the Nazi army invaded Poland and occupied Poland in 1939, rounding up Jewish families, lining them up in single file lines, shipping them off to ghettos, shipping them off to concentration camps, which is exactly where those Palestinian men are going. Where are they going? They're winding up in Israel's torture dungeons, where over the past 2 years, 60 Palestinian men and women have been murdered. They've been tortured to death. They've been starved to death. You have cases of Palestinian men being raped inside Israeli torture dungeons.
I mean, that video that we can't play here, but if people want to see it, and there are a lot of things we have to bear witness to, it's our responsibility, but you can choose, of course, what to protect yourself from. But there is a video of a bunch of IDF soldiers putting up their shields, thinking that they were protecting it from the camera. But you can see, obviously, what's happening. They're raping, one of the IDF soldiers is raping a prisoner.
We are witnessing the West Bank turn into Gaza in slow motion. It's happening slowly, but everything we've seen in Gaza over the past years is now happening in the West Bank. We're talking about 40,000 plus Palestinians ethnically cleansed from the Tulkarm, Nur Shams, and Jenin refugee camps. They were woken up in the middle of the night, forced to leave their homes for having committed the crime of being expelled from their homes in 1948. That's why they're in the refugee camps in the West Bank. And so we're seeing mass ethnic cleansing happening. We're seeing mass arrests happening. We're seeing mass killings happening. We're seeing the murder of journalists. We're seeing the confiscation of land. We're seeing the expansion of the Israeli settlement enterprise. Just this past week, Bezalel Smotrich is announcing plans to build something like 3,500 new housing units in the E1 zone. that famous zone that the European Union and the United States said was a red line for the past 30 years. That if you build in the E1 zone, you would effectively be dissecting the West Bank into two sections, thereby rendering a contiguous Palestinian state in the West Bank effectively impossible. I mean, it's been impossible for a long time, but this is the a final nail in that coffin. And that's what they just announced last week.
What do you make of this turn to the West Bank in that way, their attempts to make it into Gaza? I mean, they want to just be openly bombing. They're bombing the West Bank right now in the way that they were mowing the lawn in Gaza prior to October 7th, you know. So it's an escalation, obviously. But the fact that they're escalating beyond settler tactics there means, I mean, there's just nothing left to bomb in Gaza. They're bombing rubble, and it seems like their campaign of mass starvation, you know, might be a little bit just more efficient for them, and no one's stopping them.
No one is stopping the mass starvation campaign. Every day, the Gaza Health Ministry reports 4, 5, 10 Palestinians dying from malnutrition, being starved to death. And that's because Israel controls every entry and exit point in the Gaza Strip and decides exactly how much food enters the Gaza Strip. We had 2 weeks ago, the UN declared a famine in the north of Gaza.
And you talk about historical examples, Zach. I mean, it's the Warsaw Ghetto. Representative Thomas Massey, the Joe Manchin of the House on our side, basically. I mean, helpful. I appreciate Thomas Massey agitating on behalf of the Epstein files. Don't think I would agree with his libertarianism in any other context, but when we're trying to attack Republicans, we will take what we can get.
Or some anti-war stuff occasionally.
Sure, that's true. That too. Here he is having, I guess, a pretty fiery exchange with Kash Patel. I haven't seen this yet because this was just happening as we were at the first hour of the show. Let's get into it. This looks fun.
Gentleman, Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. Gentleman's recognized. So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's 6 story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled "What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections." The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled "Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief." And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes.
Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein stating the government.
I think they didn't cut out everything, so let me get back to Massey.
Although we did.
That backs up the Lewis Black thing.
Yes. Well, I mean, he's the Acosta quote. I mean,
notorious.
And this is just so. We know about blackmail operations prior to this. How intelligence has engaged in blackmail operations. We know how people like Roy Cohn recorded folks to use them as blackmail, very high, powerful.
The salience that gay people had to American empire was that they were able often to be blackmailed.
Yep. I think that there's a good reason Trump likes that someone like Pete Hegseth has a bunch of skeletons in his closet, including a rape accusation, or Jim Jordan for that matter. They are to really, really malevolent actors in our government. These are people that are easily controllable. We have here Kash Patel's book, just in case folks were worried that we lost our copy. But I was quite amused to see Jamie Raskin reading from it today in the hearing. But here is that Massey exchange with Kash Patel.
Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007 and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you,
Wait,
but any investigations
did he just
that
say, what did he just say? How did he just call the information? What did he just say?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials
I
brought
wanted
to
to pause it for a sec because credible information feels
like he's dismissing everybody who's made an allegation against Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
basically credible information is a very weaselly way to say selectively releasing certain information or selectively looking at information. But anyway,
I mean, he's asked by Massey explicitly about what he said yesterday, which is that there's no evidence Epstein trafficked anyone to anyone besides himself, which is insane thing to say.
We'll get into that too, because he contradicted himself in the House committee after based on what he said yesterday too. So this is under oath. I mean, I know that there's complete impunity for folks it was around 2 minutes. There you go. For folks in high positions of power right now, but it's pretty crazy to have him contradict himself in sworn testimony within 24 hours of itself.
I'll say, if you thought as leader of the FBI, he was a little bit loud and maybe too visible in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, it's in part because he liked the opportunity to be talking about something besides this thing.
Right.
My FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigation.
Yeah, the stuff that mentions me not credible. Yeah. Don't bring it, okay? Don't bring it.
Don't bring it.
Ralph Cifaretto said she was a hooah.
Investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of two different United States attorneys' offices from three separate administrations who investigated those same materials in lifetime.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here?
That's just, let him finish, but that's what's known as passing the buck.
I haven't personally. Then what the fuck are you doing, head of the FBI who podcasted about Epstein into the job? You didn't review, you got your underlings to do it and you didn't. What about a summary? What about a summary of what the underlings found? Nothing? What are you doing? Got to get to another Washington Capitals game.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing.
We're not talking about the victims.
You're saying there were none.
Yes, well, exactly. You're saying, right.
We're also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you?
No. Oh God, he did a great job. But I wish he would have said, "How are you making the determination about what is credible or incredible?" What a genius. That's not the opposite.
It's because he's smart. He knows what's credible. It's not.
The credible means it hurts Democrats. Incredible means I'm incredible. I'm incredible.
If they said I drew anything and made a little note, that's not credible.
That's not what
that's what we call incredible. It's so incredible in a bad way.
Right. I'm both incredible in a good way and also incredible in all of the Epstein-related ways.
Uncredible.
Do we have him yesterday? What he claimed that there was? I gotta find the number here. Sorry, folks. It was from the Senate House Committee. Yeah, number 9. This is just like, this is when he said that there was no credible evidence in the Senate hearing yesterday that Epstein trafficked anyone to young girls to anyone other than himself, which is insane.
Crazy.
Because
so obvious lie.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for her role in recruitment and trafficking.
She trafficked to him and only
him. It must be that. That must be that. Why that must be why Jeffrey Epstein set up cameras all across his residences and recorded everything and had
all
of
these girls are making these accusations about the other men that they were abused.
And Virginia Giuffre accused Prince Andrew, and there's photographic evidence.
Yeah, he kept those things completely separate. That's why he was just very fun to hang out with for other reasons for all these powerful people.
Right, and he was
wasn't the string of young women that he could provide.
He could spin a real yarn.
And he was so charismatic, and he was just asking these young girls to give massages to Alan Dershowitz, among others, and nothing else happened because, as Dershowitz says, he kept his underwear on.
Of course, as you do when a young girl gives you a massage.
This was yesterday.
Of the file. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files.
In the case file.
Unbelievable. So the victims are lying, according to Kash Patel. All of the victims who stood outside in the Capitol, I believe, when they held their press conference a few weeks ago, they're just lying.
What was all that stuff about co-conspirators that this Florida FBI said? There's apparently no need to do that then, because there were none.
Yes. Why would they put that in that insane non-prosecution agreement that literally every lawyer that's looked at it said this is unprecedented, that the agreement that he had this like extremely cushy prison sentence where he got to leave during the day, that it protected him from future prosecution and any potential co-conspirators. you know, that's what cops tend to do and prosecutors, hamstringing themselves artificially for no reason from bringing future cases.
Just anybody who might have been hanging around, just make sure we don't. But there were none. Also,
but there also were none.
There were none. But also, if there were any, we can't look into that because, you know, just for reasons. I mean, the reasons came out as entered into the record by Massey was I told to former Trump Labor Secretary Acosta when he was down in Florida, he belongs to intelligence.
502 Drew, maybe Kash Patel was just confused on the Epstein question because it was asked by Foghorn Leghorn. No. Definitely not. Madge, yeah, the word credible is doing a lot of work in Patel's testimony. Walk to fail. Your Patel voice needs to be a lot more nasally. Carolina Social says, a Canes fan. I hate that freak so much knowing he's a Caps fan. I don't know if he's a Caps fan or just a clout chaser that wanted to be there for that. I mean,
That was an Islanders game, right? I was trying to go to that.
And another just like veteran privilege that Brian gets is he gets these free tickets to amazing games. Not to that, yeah. God, these veterans have to stop ripping us off.
They're stealing our hockey tickets.
Yeah.
Want to see Raskin hit Patel with a big compilation of his former podcast work?
Please do it.
Director Patel, before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip.
Has Epstein's list, they're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
So you finished that December 2023 interview with a challenge to the FBI and harsh words for Republicans in Congress for not getting the Epstein files out to the public. You can see this clip.
Boy pants, and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
This is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black book?
Black book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
Okay, so you were sworn in as director more than 200 days ago. Now the black book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the rape and sex trafficking of young women and girls?
Oh, did they show his answer? Can you please find it?
I got to see how he responds to that. I want to see which direction that left eye ran to.
Oh my God. Okay, look.
Well,
we have all right, we have it. We have so many critiques, and just show the freeze frame. We don't even need to. Look, twins. He has a copy too. International bestseller. Even Jamie Raskin has to pick up a copy of The Plot Against the King. Okay, yeah, fine. Let's see if we can find that. God, I was laughing so hard because it's just
Jeffrey Epstein.
Put on your big boy pants and tell us who the pedophiles are.
It's just so good.
It's so funny how embarrassing podcasting looks in that scenario.
Exactly. Right.
Here's a little bit of the response. Let's see if I can find a long one. But in the meantime, here is just a little bit here.
Yeah.
The black book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the rape and sex trafficking of young women and girls?
The Rolodex, which is what everybody colloquially refers to as the black book, has been released.
Oh, no, you're talking about what the journalist got 5 years ago? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there.
That's
the black
exactly
book under the direct control of the FBI director.
Jamie Raskin.
Fascinating, because this is what they remember the first the binder release where all the influencers came out with the stage 1 Epstein release of the stuff that had already been released. There's no way Kash, that anyone thought you meant the stuff that was already out there when you were saying the FBI director was sitting on it.
Yes, when that in 2023, right? This journalist had already revealed this in 2020, I think, 2019.
A while ago.
A while ago. So Kash Patel just, when he was on those podcasts talking about it, he just must have not been aware of that reporting.
That we need to re-release all the stuff. Oh yeah, you're the guy. Yeah, there's no explanation about that looks good, because if you didn't know that, how are you like the main guest on all these people's podcasts to talk about this very obvious thing where like the main thing to know is what's in the public record and what is still being withheld by the government. That's the number one job.
I just gotta say, for all of our critiques of Democrats at top of committees and in leadership, Jamie Raskin's in the right spot.
It helps
He's in the right spot.
It helps when your target was stupid enough to go on a bunch of podcasts that are easily indexable in a search.
It does help, but
I can just picture all these senators whistling as they put their socks on.
Oh my
these
God.
representatives are like, I have a great easy day.
Yeah, yes. No stress. It's like pizza party day. Pizza gate party day.
People are being fired from universities, from businesses, because they have said mean things about Charlie Kirk. Or they have done even worse by actually quoting Charlie Kirk and compiling
not fair
quotes of Charlie Kirk. Matthew Dowd, who, with all due respect, I don't care about what happens to him, but he was fired from MSNBC, and I'm not quite clear why, because he said something like maybe Kirk was killed by somebody who was celebrating and firing their guns off. Utah, one of two states in the country where there is a can carry on campus law. So the presence of guns there, people were like, why wasn't there security? For what? For what? To keep out outside food? What would you search for? No ninja stars? You're allowed to carry on that campus.
No Qurans.
Who do you think Yosemite Sam would have voted for?
What? Who?
He'd probably be MAGA. I'm saying, the celebration. Just he was a very pew-pew celebration guy.
So this guy gets fired for that. And then this guy has all weekend to apologize for this comment. Incidentally, they're talking about unhoused people.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Now pause it for a second. Now that in and of itself is I would imagine, is very offensive to the give me liberty or give me death people. Like that you don't have a right. Now, certainly, I do think that there is, a question, a very nuanced question of at what point is someone incapable of taking care of themselves or a danger to themselves? I don't think it's a black and white thing that is you either take the services or or we lock you up. But that's a pretty offensive, simplistic comment. But stick around because Brian Kilmeade says, hold my beer.
Up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
Okay. Look at, what's that dude's name?
Lawrence.
Yeah,
Jones?
Look at Lawrence, whatever his name is. Look at him, he just responds to Kilmeade almost automatically. Yep. What did I just co-sign?
Just kill him.
Involuntary lethal injection. Good.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this: we're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
How could you not vote for somebody who wants to kill?
Go around injecting people to kill them?
People without homes. Isn't this obvious? Now, how many days later was this?
Apologies in the sound.
Of course, Fox is not going to fire this guy. This is yesterday. He did that on Friday. It took him like 2 or 3 days before he got around to this apology.
In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zaruska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy.
Like, this is just unbelievable. He's obviously aware that not all homeless people are killers. Well, that's good. You know who's a killer, dude? The guy who says we should kill all these people.
Just kill him, I think, was a direct quote.
Go back and
involuntary lethal injection.
I was callous. It was a callous thing to say.
I wrongly said that murderous thing.
Homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark.
Pause it for a second. Like, he can't even look into the camera as he apologizes. Look at it. Is he looking at like a teleprompter? This is so heartfelt. But he's not even looking at a teleprompter. It's like he has to look away. Watch his eyes when he says, I apologize. Go back. Go ahead.
Attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion.
Yeah. I mean, he did it. He did the apology. Move on.
Empathetically.
Nothing else to see here.
Empathetically and compassionately warehouse them. And you can thank me for not just killing them right where they lay.
He doesn't even say, like, the involuntary part of the lethal injection is like, that is like so calculated way of saying kill them. Yeah. They should be put to death. He didn't want to say, like, involuntary lethal injection is pretty close to about as sanitized as you can get for saying we should put them to death.
Well, he follows it up with just kill them.
In case you,
Where was I? I didn't hear that part.
You didn't hear that?
No.
No.
Oh, yeah.
He just says just kill them.
Where?
Choices that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it?
Oh my God! I missed that.
When I said just kill them,
I don't want to make you think.
Sensitive.
I don't want to make you think that was just an aside. So I'm going to make sure it's just explaining what I meant by involuntary lethal injection. He said kill them twice. Not just an aside. Just kill them. It is. We need to methodically kill them. And by that, I mean, we need to kill him. Just kill him.
That was callous.
That was callous of me.